Okay, hello YouTube. Today we're going to talk about a concept I like to call setting up the shot. And this is a really important concept if you want to get better, especially if you want to kind of move past that beginner level. So anyways, if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please hit that subscribe button, click on your notification icon. So anyways, let's just give like an example from a lot of beginner games, the way a lot of beginners think that they should be setting up a shot, especially if they're playing against other beginners. And this is a lot of the early experience that we have is, let's say we start a game with e4 and then we have something like e5. A lot of beginners, their idea of setting up a shot is to make one move threats. So to play something like queen h5 and threaten a pawn, or to play queen f3, and then say after knight c6 to threaten mate in one, the scholar's mate, and just hope they don't see it. Well, as you get a little bit better, you start realizing that, of course, your opponents see one-move threats. And another thing is, if you're just making a one-move threat, and you're not improving your position, like if you're putting your queen on an exposed square, like on f3, that actually makes your position worse, because if they see the one move threat and they counter it, now suddenly your queen is in an exposed spot. So for example, say knight f6, g4, we could play knight d4, and this queen would have to move again, and this position is already just advantage black, even if we just move all the way back home, still just advantage black. And there's no really good way around that. So when you start becoming a better player, the idea of setting up a shot is not a bad one. It's actually a good instinct. So it's good that we learn how to set up these one-move shots, but really what we need to learn how to do is set up the 2- and 3-move shots, because these usually work very good. And you also need to learn how to set up your shot while improving your position, basically making a move that fits in with your position. And usually, if you do this, if you do these two things, if you set up a shot and you improve your position at the same time, then it's almost always the best move. A great example of setting up a shot is in this sort of variation of the Italian game. We have the two knights defense, we have the knight attack with knight g5, we have d5 takes knight a5, we have this Palermo check line, or I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and then we have c6 takes, and then we're going to have queen f3, and then we're going to have bishop b7. Now bishop b7 is kind of a well-known mistake in this position, and the remedy for it is just to play something like bishop a4 and just maintain that pin, because that pin is not supposed to be a great thing. So black would like to be able to play a move like knight d5, but of course right now he can't because of this one move threat, queen f7, and as previously stated, people typically do see one move threats, so black is going to kick that knight away first, and then knight back to e4, and now knight d5, thinking, aha, this is the way to do it. But here white can get a huge advantage by just setting up a really simple 2-move shot. And pause the video, see if you can find the move. The simple move is just the simple developing move, this move knight on 1 to c3. So the whole point is I've set up a shot here. I've set up maybe a shot that might not be easy for somebody to see, because it's not a 1-move threat, it's a 2-move threat. So the threat is if black just does nothing, like if black just makes a normal developing move like bishop e7, pause the video and see if you can find the shot that white just set up. The move is knight takes d5, just winning the knight for free. Because you don't have queen takes d5, because now knight f6 check, which forks the king and queen, will win that queen on d5. Because when the knight gets captured, we simply play queen d5, and guess what? This pin is still there. The bishop on a4 is still pinning that pawn to the king, and we cannot play pawn captures queen. So we're actually just threatening to win a whole piece by simply developing our knight. And according to the engine anyway, this position is decisive advantage white, even if black finds the absolute best move, which is to move the knight again, because black is losing so much time on moving this knight multiple times. He's already moved it out once, moved it to d5 twice, moved it back to b6, whereas white has had a great deal of equity in his moves, and white is still up a pawn. So the computer wants to play, instead of bishop e7, the computer wants to play knight b6, and then we have d3, knight takes a4, again the knight moves again, knight takes a4, c5, bishop e3 is considered decisive advantage white, at least according to the engine. It's almost like, I think like +3. It's a very large advantage for white. So Going back, what are some other scenarios where we can set up a shot? Well, another scenario comes up a lot in the French, and this is one of my favorite ones. So after e4, e6, d4, d5, we have knight c3, takes, bishop e7, knight f3, knight f6, takes, bishop to d3, and then they castle. I've had this position a whole bunch of times, and this position is already probably somewhere between major to decisive advantage white. And white's next move is actually kind of critical. It's a fun move to play. I like playing the move personally. Actually, with my last move, I kind of set up a little bit of a shot, like bishop d3. I'm daring black to take this pawn. It's a little bit of a two-move tactic. If bishop takes pawn, we have knight takes bishop, queen takes, and we'll go ahead and put that on the board just so you can see it. Knight takes, queen takes. Pause the video and see if you can find the move. And if you found it, the move is bishop to b5 check, attacking the king, and a discovered attack against the queen, winning an entire queen. So instead of that, we're going to have castles kingside, and here we set up the shot. So pause the video, see if you can find the move. The move that sets up the shot here is the move pawn to h4. And the shot that we're setting up is the classic bishop sacrifice beginning with bishop takes h7. So that's kind of a well-known tactical combination. So if black just plays some normal, ordinary passive move, like if he plays something like b6, for example, to try to develop his bishop by fianchettoing it to b7, it's a fairly logical move. We could then continue with bishop takes h7, king h7, knight g5 check, king back to g8, and then queen h5 threatening mate, and white's attack is considered basically unstoppable. It's considered an irresistible attack, and this should lead to decisive advantage white. But what's more important is h4 fits into an overall plan for white. White doesn't really intend to castle kingside. White intends to play bishop d2, queen e2, and then castle queenside. So even if black finds the absolute best tries, like if black plays something else, like if black plays rook e8, in this case actually bishop h7 still leads to a very strong attack. Bishop h7, king h7, knight g5, king g8, queen h5, still a very strong attack. Probably not quite decisive advantage white, but at least major advantage white. Or if black decides, okay, I see the threat, I'm going to stop bishop takes h7 and play something like h6. Well, what he's done is he's effectively weakened his light squares, and he's going to make it much more difficult to defend when we start piling up on the light squares with moves like queen e2 and queen e4. So now we would just continue with something like, say, queen e2, aiming at that e4 square, preparing to attack those light squares that have not been weakened. And then after black plays, this is computer best play, apparently, playing bishop e7, the idea is that black was in such a bad spot, he needs to be able to play f5 to cover his light squares at some point. So white can actually just continue with rook h3 just to get the rook into the attack, with rook g3 is now a threat, and now everything is going to be attacking the black king. So now black should continue with bishop to d6, preventing rook g3. White can continue with knight e5, kind of reiterating that threat. We have f5, bishop d2, knight c6, takes, castles queenside, queen e7, and then something as simple as g4 to go about the process of breaking up the kingside is still decisive advantage white, according to the engine, and black did absolutely everything right after white set up the shot with the move pawn to h4. It's because that move pawn to h4 fit in perfectly with what white's normal plan was. White wanted to play queen e2, bishop d2, castles queenside, and white wanted to continue with some sort of attack against the black king because black was underdeveloped, had less space, and gave white his king's address just a little bit too early. So anyways, that's how you set up the shot in a position, and that's how you do it in such a way so that you end up with an advantage, even if your opponent finds the absolute best moves. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you can use some of these ideas in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.